want to start with a quick diagnostic on your own brain. Don't think too hard, just react. If I ask you, what is 2 plus 2? What happens?
4. It's just,
Okay.
it's immediate. I didn't even have to process it. It just sort of appeared.
Exactly. It's a reflex. But what if I ask you, what is 17 multiplied by 24?
Okay, that is completely different. I have to actually stop. I have to, visualize the numbers. So 17 times 20 is 340. Then 17 times 4 is 68. Add them. 408.
You had to grind through it. You had to iterate. Psychologists call this the difference between System 1, that's the fast, instinctive thinking, and System 2, which is the slow, deliberate reasoning.
Right.
And here's the problem with AI right now. Even the very best models, the ones everyone is so excited about, they're almost entirely stuck in System 1.
It's so true. A large language model isn't thinking about its answer. It's just predicting the next most probable word. It's a reflex engine. It's doing 2 plus 2, just, a billion times a second.
So for this section, we are looking at a set of papers that propose a really fundamental architectural shift. We're moving away from models that just guess and towards models that can effectively think before they speak.
We're talking about energy-based models, or EBMs, and they're fascinating because they completely flip the script on how you generate data. Instead of a model trying to memorize a map from, say, an input to an output, an EBM learns a compatibility function.
A compatibility function for what?
For the entire universe of data.
That sounds huge. But let me just play the skeptic right out of the gate. We have transformers. We have diffusion models making these incredible photorealistic images. They are frankly eating the world.
They are.
Why on earth do we need to go back to the drawing board with this whole energy idea? Is this just, I don't know, physicists trying to jam their terminology into machine learning to feel relevant?
It's a fair question, and actually, diffusion models are a very specific type of this broader idea, but the core concept of an EBM gives you something those other models really struggle with. Flexibility, a kind of reasoning, and compositionality.
Okay.
And yeah, the word energy comes from physics, specifically thermodynamics, but don't let the branding fool you. It's just a way of scoring reality.
Scoring reality. Okay, let's anchor this. What are we actually building? What is an EBM?
At its heart, an EBM is just a function. Let's call it E of X. It takes an input, like an image or a sentence, and it spits out a single number, a scalar.
Just one number.
Just one. And that number stands for incompatibility. So if I show the model a picture of a totally normal, high-res cat, it says low energy, high compatibility. It looks real.
Okay.
But if I show it a picture of random static or a cat with, 7 legs, it says high energy. That looks wrong.
So it's basically a critic. It's not an artist, it's an art critic.
That's a perfect analogy. You can even visualize it like a topographic map. Imagine this huge landscape with mountains and valleys. Right. The real data, all the sensible images, all the grammatical sentences, they all sit at the bottom of the valleys. That's the low energy spot.
Yeah.
And all the noise and nonsense are up on the mountain peaks. High energy. The model's entire job is just to learn the shape of that terrain.
I can see the landscape.
Yeah.
But in the papers, there was this terrifying equation that kept popping up. P of x equals e to the minus e of x, all divided by z.
Ah, yes.
And every single author treated this z like it was the villain of the entire story.
Z is the partition function, and yes, it is the villain. In probability, you have a very strict rule. All probabilities have to sum up to exactly 1.
Right. A 70% chance of rain means a 30% chance of not rain.
Exactly. Well, to make our energy scores into proper probabilities that sum to 1, we have to divide by the sum of, every possible input in the universe.
Wait a minute. If we're modeling, say, 1080p images?
You would have to calculate and then sum the energy score for every possible combination of pixels. That number is, and this isn't an exaggeration, larger than the number of atoms in the known universe.
So you can't calculate z. It's intractable.
You can't.
So the whole equation breaks, right?
Yeah.
If you can't calculate the denominator.
In a standard model, yes, it would. But here's the beautiful trick with EBMs. For the most part, we just ignore Z.
You just ignore the laws of probability.
We ignore the need for an absolute probability. Think about that landscape again. If I want to know if the valley on the left is deeper than the valley on the right, do I need to know their exact altitude relative to sea level?
No. You just need the relative difference between them.
Exactly. We only care about the shape, not the absolute altitude. And because we can ignore Z, we unlock this massive architectural freedom. Other models, like normalizing flows, have to use these very restricted invertible neural networks, so the math works out.
Right. VAEs use approximations.
And VAEs use approximations. But an energy function, it can be any neural network. a ResNet, a transformer, whatever. As long as it spits out one number at the end, it works.
Okay, so we have this flexible critic. It can look at an image and say good or bad. But you still haven't explained how this thing creates anything. If I ask for a picture of a dog and it just gives me a score of 500, that's not a dog.
No, it's a number. And this brings us right back to your System 2 comparison. This is where the thinking actually happens. In a normal model, you put in a prompt and bam, one shot, you get an image.
Right, the reflex.
But in an EBM, generation is an optimization problem.
When I hear optimization, I think of training. You optimize the weights.
Usually, yes. Usually we're calculating gradients to update the model's brain. But here, during generation, we freeze the brain. We give the model a block of random static noise and we just ask, what do you think of this?
And it says high energy. This is garbage.
Correct. But because the whole model is differentiable, it can calculate the gradient of that energy score with respect to the input pixels. It can mathematically answer the question, how would I have to change these specific pixels to make the energy go down?
Wow, okay, that is wild. So it's not predicting the next pixel. It's looking at the entire mess, figuring out which direction is downhill on that topographic map.
And nudging the pixels that way.
And then it just does it again.
And again, and again. It's like a sculptor. It starts with a block of digital marble, the noise, and it iteratively chips away at all the high-energy parts until a recognizable image emerges down in the valley.
So that loop check the energy, nudges the pixels, check again. That is the System 2 process. That's the machine thinking.
That's it exactly. And the paper on energy-based transformers highlights a killer feature here, which they call dynamic computation.
Meaning what?
It means you can let it think for as long as it needs to. A standard transformer uses the same amount of compute to write the word the as it does to solve a complex riddle. It's fixed. But with an EBM, you can set a threshold. You can tell it don't stop refining until the energy is below 10.
So if the problem is hard, it just runs the loop for longer.
It just keeps thinking.
It knows when it doesn't know. The energy score is like a confidence meter.
It's a built-in bullshit detector, yes. If the energy stays high, the model is explicitly telling you, I haven't solved this yet.
I'm sold on the inference side. It sounds robust. It sounds deliberate. So why aren't we seeing EBM GPT or mid-journey EBM? Why is this still sitting in research papers and not in my browser?
Because training them is a nightmare. It is notoriously, famously unstable.
What goes wrong? What actually breaks?
It all comes down to how we teach the model the shape of that landscape. The objective is technically simple. Contrast of divergence. You take real data, photos of faces, and you tell the model, push the energy down here.
Big the valley.
Big the valley. That's the easy part. But you also have to tell it where to raise the mountains. You have to show it fake data and say, pull the energy up here.
Can't you just use random noise for the fake data? Real face is good, static noise is bad?
You'd think so, but if you do that, the model cheats. It just digs a tiny little hole for the real faces, creates a huge peak way out for static noise, and leaves everything in between completely flat. It doesn't learn the structure of what makes an image valid.
It just learns to tell faces apart from TV snow.
Exactly. So you need fake data that looks almost real. You need those near misses to force the model to be precise about the landscape.
And to find those almost real images. Oh, don't tell me.
Yep. You have to run that iterative generation loop. It's called Langevin Dynamics inside the training loop.
Oh, that's the bottleneck. To teach the model how to think, you have to make it think thousands of times for every single update.
It is excruciatingly slow. And a lot of the time, the loop just diverges, the gradients explode, and the whole model just collapses.
Right.
But this is where that stack of papers gets so interesting. We're finally getting some solutions that make this workable.
Okay, let's get into them. The first one that stood out to me was MEBM, or manifold EBM. I think they used a paratrooper analogy in the notes.
Right. So standard training drops a paratrooper, that's a random noise, into a forest 10 miles from the city and says, find downtown. The noise has to wander for a long, long time to even get close to looking like a real image. That takes a huge number of steps, which we call K.
And MEBM, it changes the drop zone.
They use what's called informative initialization. Instead of starting from pure random noise, they start the generation process from a mean image, or maybe a cluster center from the training data.
So you drop the paratrooper in the suburbs instead of the deep forest.
Exactly. And because they start so much closer to the data manifold, the city, they can drastically cut down K, the number of refinement steps. This was the breakthrough that stabilized training enough to finally handle high-res datasets like CelebHQ and ImageNet.
So it speeds up the thinking loop enough to make training bearable.
Hmm.
Okay? But there's another paper, MJ Manifold Joint Energy Model. This one felt like it was addressing a kind of personality crisis in the model.
That's a great way to describe it. This is for when you want a model that can do two things at once. Classify, as in, is this a cat? And generate, make me a cat.
And you'd think those would be the same skill. If you know what a cat looks like, you should be able to draw one.
In theory, yes. But mathematically, the goals actually conflict. A classifier wants to be invariant. It wants to ignore the lighting, the background, the texture, and just see cat. It wants to throw away information.
Whereas a generator needs all that detail.
A generator has to be exquisitely sensitive to all of it. It needs to know exactly how light hits the fur. So when you train one model to do both, they fight each other.
And the performance on both tasks just tanks.
Right. So MJ&M fixes this with a really clever architectural tweak. They add a specific energy head. It's basically a separate little branch of the network whose only job is to calculate the energy score.
A dedicated brain region just for that.
Exactly. And they regularize it to keep the values stable. But the real trick is the split training. They feed one batch of data for the classification task, with data augmentation, flipping images, rotating them to teach it robustness. And then they feed a separate clean batch just for the energy objective.
So it learns the abstract concept of cat from the messy data and the concept of realism from the clean data.
Precisely. It decouples those two conflicting goals. You get a model that's a top-tier classifier and a high-fidelity generator, all in one.
Okay, there was one more, and this felt like the most cutting-edge one. Energy matching. It mentioned optimal transport, which sounds more like a logistics company.
This one is the heavy hitter. It's basically combining the best parts of diffusion models, which use something called flow matching with EBMs.
Okay, break down optimal transport for me.
Imagine you have a pile of dirt shaped like a pyramid, and you want to move it to form a cube. Optimal transport is just the math that figures out the most efficient way to move every single grain of dirt to its new position.
The path of least resistance.
Exactly. In AI, we're moving a distribution of random noise into a distribution of real images. Standard EBM training just lets that noise wander around randomly until it falls into a valley. It's inefficient. Energy matching forces the noise to take the straightest, most efficient path towards the data.
But wait, if it's just following a straight path, isn't that just a diffusion model? Where does the energy part come in?
The innovation is that they switch strategies midstream. They use the efficient highway of optimal transport to get the noise close to the data manifold. But once it's in the right neighborhood, they switch back to the classic EBM style of minimizing the energy function.
So it takes a highway to get to the city limits, then uses a local map to find the specific address.
That's the perfect analogy. And this solves a huge problem with old EBMs called mode collapse, where they'd find one valley, say golden retrievers, and just generate that over and over. This new method forces the model to visit every neighborhood in the city. You get diversity and fidelity.
So we have the math E to the negative energy, we have the thinking inference by sculpting noise,
Yeah.
and we have training methods that stop it from exploding.
Yeah.
But you mentioned EBMs have a superpower, the Lego block capability.
Compositionality. This is where all that math really pays off in a beautiful way.
Explain the problem first. Why can't I just ask a diffusion model for a smiling man?
Well, you can, but only because it has seen thousands of images labeled smiling man in its training data. Let's say you have a concept it hasn't seen combined. You have a model trained on Aztec architecture and another trained on cyberpunk neon.
Okay.
If you ask a standard model to combine those zero-shot, it usually just fails. It makes a mess because it's trying to predict pixels based on a distribution it has never actually studied.
It can't blend concepts unless it's seen the blend before.
Right. But EBMs can do this natively. Remember the equation. Probability is E to the negative energy. In math, if you want the probability of two things happening together, a logical A and D, you multiply their probabilities.
With the high school algebra, when you multiply numbers with exponents, you add the exponents.
Bingo. To get Aztec and cyberpunk, you literally just take the energy function for Aztec and add it to the energy function for cyberpunk. E total equals E Aztec plus E cyberpunk.
You just sum the numbers. You don't have to retrain anything at all.
No retraining, zero shot. You just tell the optimization loop, minimize the sum of these two energies, and the model will naturally find an image that satisfies both constraints because that's the only place on the map where the total energy can be low.
That's concept algebra.
It is. And it works for other logic, too. If you want A, O, or B, you use an operation called log sum x. If you want not A, you just invert the energy. You can build these complex queries like a smiling man with glasses who is not wearing a hat just by stacking these energy blocks together.
This feels like it solves a huge problem with AI reliability. Right now, if I ask an image generator for something really specific, I'm basically crossing my fingers. It's a slot machine.
Yes.
But with this, you're mathematically constraining it.
That's the power of verification. The EBM isn't just guessing. It is actively verifying compatibility with every single constraint you give it. It lets us impose rules on the output without needing a dataset that already has those rules baked in.
So to bring this all together, we're moving from models that are these massive, fast, instinctive predictors, system 1,
to models that are iterative, deliberate, and can reason, system 2.
We're trading raw speed because these loops do take time for reliability, for compositionality, and for reasoning.
We're shifting the core question from what comes next to does this make sense?
It makes me wonder about the future of these agents. If an EBM can think for as long as it needs to lower its energy, are we moving towards an AI that can experience something like cognitive effort?
It's a fascinating technical question. If the model has to burn compute cycles, real electricity, time, money, to lower its energy and resolve its own uncertainty, that is the machine equivalent of concentrating.
And if that's true, could we eventually punish an AI for lazy thinking? If it gives a high-energy answer just to save compute, is that the AI slacking off?
If we set the incentives up right, we might start to see the emergence of models that refuse to speak until they've really thought it through. Models that value the low energy of being correct over the speed of just giving any reply.
A machine that values silence until it has something worthwhile to say. That would certainly be a nice change of pace for the internet.
It was a pleasure.